Nobody warned me about this part. I was warned about the sleepless nights when they were babies. I was warned about the teenage years, the arguments, the doors that slam, and the silences that follow. I was warned that raising children is the hardest thing a woman can do, and also the most important. Nobody warned me about what comes after, what it actually feels like when they are grown and gone and living their own full lives. And you are sitting in a house that used to hold so much noise and movement and need, and now holds mostly quiet. And you love them completely, every single one of them. And some days that love sits in your chest like something with no place to go. I have 3 adult children. William is 44 and lives in New York. Caroline is 38 and lives in Boston. And then there is my third, whom I love without condition and find genuinely difficult. And I will come back to that. Today I want to say the things I have never heard said out loud. Not the version of motherhood that sounds graceful and resolved. The real version. The one that is still complicated at 72, even though you have had decades to get used to it. The first thing nobody told me is how much the relationship changes after they leave. And I do not mean changes in the way people say it changes, with a knowing smile, as if it gets easier and better and you gain a friend. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it becomes something harder to name. Something more like watching a person you love deeply from a slight distance, never quite close enough, never quite far enough to stop feeling the gap. William calls regularly. We have a warm, easy relationship that I am genuinely grateful for. But he is in New York. He is busy. He has a life that I am not a central part of, and that is exactly how it should be. And some days that knowledge sits very strangely. Caroline is the child I am closest to. She calls several times a week. She visits. She includes me. And even with all of that, I sometimes hang up the phone and sit for a moment with the awareness that her real daily life, the texture of it, the small things, mostly happens without me, as it should, and as it sometimes aches. Nobody told me that the love does not become easier to hold just because they are adults. It just becomes quieter about where it goes. The second thing nobody talks about is how much contact is actually normal. Because whatever the answer is, it is almost certainly less than what you want. And sitting with that gap between what you want and what you have, without turning it into something wrong with you or something wrong with them, is work that nobody prepares you for. I spent years quietly measuring, counting days between calls, noticing when a visit was cut shorter than I had hoped, feeling something I did not want to name every time a holiday passed with less time together than I had imagined. What I came to understand eventually is that my children are not measuring, they are living. The gap I was experiencing was entirely inside me, invisible to them, because they were not counting the days between calls. They were simply living the days. That understanding changed something, not completely, not immediately, but it shifted something in how I held the quiet. I upload every single day and I sit with you in these evening hours because I think the things women my age carry quietly deserve to be said out loud. If today is your first time here, come back tomorrow. I will be here. The third thing, and this one I have touched on before, but I want to say it more fully today. I have one child who has become genuinely difficult to be in relationship with. I will not name him. I have never named him in these conversations, and I will not start now, because that is not fair and it is not mine to do. But I want to speak about the experience, because I know I am not the only mother sitting with it. There is a version of loving your adult child that nobody prepares you for, where the love is completely intact and the person is very hard to be around, where a phone call can leave you feeling smaller than before it started, where you find yourself dreading something you also desperately want. I blamed myself for a long time, went through every decision I had made as a mother, looking for the thing I had done wrong, the moment I could have gone differently. I spent real time and real money working through that question. And what I arrived at, slowly and not without resistance, is something I believe is true even though part of me still argues with it. I raised 3 children in the same house with the same love and the same values. They became 3 entirely different people. Some of who they are was shaped by me. Some of it was simply who they were going to be. I did not fail. I raised a person who became himself. And the self he became is hard for me to be around sometimes. Both of those things are true. I think there are many women my age sitting in their homes right now, holding exactly this feeling and not saying it to anyone because it sounds like a confession of failure. I am saying it so you know it is not. It is just the truth of raising humans. You do not get to choose who they become. You only get to choose how you love them once they are there. The fourth thing I want to say is about guilt. The specific, persistent guilt that comes with being a mother of adult children who you sometimes feel disconnected from. I have felt guilty for wanting more contact. Guilty for finding one of my children difficult. Guilty for the evenings I sit here feeling lonely when I have 3 living children who love me in their way. Guilty for the moments I resented the quiet that was supposed to feel like freedom. What I have learned about mother guilt is that it does not respond to logic. You cannot reason yourself out of it. You can only slowly learn to hold it more lightly, to recognize it when it arrives, acknowledge it, and then set it down, rather than letting it settle in and stay. You did the best you could with what you had and what you knew at every stage. That is the truth for almost every mother I have ever known. And the best is worth something, even when the outcome is complicated. What I stopped doing that changed my relationships with all 3 of my children is this. I stopped making my happiness their responsibility. Not consciously, not deliberately, but for years I had been putting a quiet pressure on those relationships that I was not fully aware of. The way I spoke about missing them, the way I framed holidays, the way certain silences carried a weight that they could feel even when I said nothing. I was not doing it on purpose, but I was doing it. When I stopped, when I genuinely took responsibility for building a life that felt full on its own terms, the relationships relaxed. They became easier, warmer, more real. Because my children could feel that they were no longer being asked to fill something they did not have the ability to fill. That is the most useful thing I have learned in this chapter of motherhood. Fill your own life, not as a strategy, as a genuine act of taking care of yourself. And watch what happens to the relationships when the pressure lifts. I am 72 years old. I am still learning how to be a mother to adults. Some days I get it right. Some days I call Caroline 3 times and then sit wondering if I am too much. Some days I wait for a call that does not come, and I make myself a cup of tea and I come here and I talk to you instead. This is the real version, not the resolved, graceful, finished version, the still in progress version, which I have come to believe is the only honest version there is. Thank you for sitting with me today. I will be here tomorrow. Come sit with me.